You think your life is fine. Not perfect, not terrible, just fine. You wake up, you go through your day, you do what you're supposed to do. Nothing extreme, nothing chaotic, nothing wrong. And that's exactly the problem. Because average life doesn't feel dangerous. It doesn't hurt you suddenly. It doesn't break you overnight. It doesn't scream at you, "Wake up!" Instead, it whispers, softly, "It's okay. You're doing enough. You're just like everyone else." And you believe it. That's how the trap works. You don't realize you're stuck because everything feels normal. You compare yourself to others and you see the same patterns, same routines, same habits, the same level of effort. So you think, this must be right. This must be life. But what if it's not? What if you're not living your life, but just repeating a system? A system designed for average. Wake up, do the minimum, stay comfortable, avoid risk, repeat day after day, year after year. And because nothing feels wrong, you never question it. You never stop and ask, is this really the life I want? Because asking that question is dangerous. It creates discomfort. It creates awareness, and awareness breaks the illusion. So your mind protects you. It keeps you busy, keeps you distracted, keeps you comfortable, so you never look deeper. Because the moment you do, everything changes. You start noticing things, how your days feel the same, how your progress is slow or non-existent, how your goals stay in your head instead of your life. And that realization, it's uncomfortable because now you can't ignore it. You can't pretend everything's okay. You can't go back to that peaceful ignorance because now you see it. You're living an average life, not because you're forced to, but because you've accepted it slowly, quietly, without even realizing it. And that's the scariest part. You didn't choose this life consciously. You drifted into it through habits, through routines, through small decisions. Every time you chose comfort over growth, you moved closer to average. Every time you avoided risk, you stayed in the same place. Every time you said, "I'll do it later," you delayed your own life. And now, you're here, in a life that feels okay, but isn't fulfilling. A life that looks stable, but isn't growing. A life that feels safe, but is slowly limiting you. Because average life doesn't destroy you instantly. It reduces you, little by little, until one day, you realize you've become someone you never intended to be. Not because you failed, but because you settled. Settled for comfort, settled for routine, settled for good enough. And now, you don't even know how to break out because average becomes your identity. It becomes your standard. It becomes what feels normal. And anything beyond that feels uncomfortable, feels difficult, feels too much. That's the trap. You get so used to average that excellence feels unnatural. You get so used to comfort that growth feels painful. And because of that, you stay where you are, not because you have to, but because it feels easier. And easy is addictive, but easy comes with a cost, a silent cost, a long-term cost, the cost of your potential, the cost of your growth, the cost of the life you could have lived. And you don't feel that cost immediately. You feel it later, when time has passed, when opportunities are gone, when change feels harder. And then it hits you. I could have done more. But by then, you've already spent years in average, years repeating the same patterns, years staying in the same place. And now, breaking out feels almost impossible. But here's the truth. You're not stuck. You're just comfortable. And comfort is the most dangerous place you can be because it doesn't push you. It doesn't challenge you. It doesn't force you to grow. It just keeps you where you are. And if you stay there long enough, that becomes your life. So ask yourself, are you really okay with this? Are you really satisfied? Or are you just used to it? Because there's a difference. And that difference changes everything. Because the moment you realize, I don't want this life, that's the moment the trap starts to break. That's the moment awareness begins. That's the moment everything can change, but only if you act, because nobody is coming to save you, and the average life will keep you exactly where you are, if you let it. There's a reason you haven't escaped this life yet. Not because you're weak, not because you're incapable, but because average feels safe. And safety is addictive. It doesn't demand anything from you. It doesn't challenge you. It doesn't push you into discomfort. It simply tells you, stay here. You're fine. And your mind listens, because your mind is wired for survival, not for growth. It wants to avoid risk, avoid pain, avoid uncertainty. So when you're living an average life, your brain sees it as success, because you're not in danger, you're not struggling, you're not taking risks that could fail. You're stable, and stability feels good, predictable, comfortable, controlled. You know what your day looks like. You know what your limits are. You know what to expect. And that predictability gives you peace. But here's the truth. That peace is temporary. Because while you're protecting yourself from discomfort, you're also protecting yourself from growth. You're avoiding failure, but you're also avoiding success. You're avoiding risk, but you're also avoiding opportunity. That's the trade. And most people don't even realize they're making it. They think they're choosing stability, but they're actually choosing limitation. Because growth lives outside of comfort, always, in uncertainty, in risk, in effort. But average life keeps you inside the circle, inside what's known, inside what's easy, inside what feels safe. And the longer you stay there, the smaller that circle becomes. Your comfort zone expands, but your life doesn't. Your routine becomes your world, and your world becomes your limit. You stop exploring, you stop pushing, you stop asking for more, because deep down, you've accepted this as enough, even if it's not what you truly want. That's the dangerous part. You settle without realizing it. You convince yourself, this is okay, I don't need more, I'm fine like this. But are you really? Or are you just avoiding the discomfort of wanting more? Because wanting more means you have to change, you have to grow, you have to step into uncertainty, you have to risk failure. And that's scary. So instead, you stay. You stay in what's familiar, you stay in what's comfortable, you stay in what feels safe, even if it's slowly limiting you. Because your brain values safety more than potential. It would rather keep you in a predictable life than risk an unpredictable one, even if that unpredictable life could be better. That's how you get stuck, not by force, but by comfort. And comfort is silent. It doesn't tell you you're wasting your life. It tells you you're doing fine. And that's enough to keep you where you are, day after day, year after year, until it becomes your reality. A life that feels okay, but never becomes great. Because great requires risk. Great requires discomfort. Great requires stepping outside of what feels safe. And average? Average requires nothing. Just stay. Just repeat. Just exist. And that's why it's so easy, because it asks nothing from you. No extra effort, no extra discipline, no extra responsibility. Just maintain, just continue, just survive. But survival is not living, it's existing. And there's a difference, a big one. Because living requires intention, it requires effort, it requires you to go beyond what feels safe. And that's where most people stop. Because safety is comfortable. Even if it's limiting, even if it's holding them back, even if it's costing them their potential, they stay because it feels easier. But easier doesn't mean better. Easier just means less resistance. And less resistance means less growth. That's the equation. So the question is,
Are you choosing safety or are you choosing growth? Because you can't have both, not at the same level. You either stay where it's comfortable or you step into something more. And stepping into something more will feel uncomfortable at first. It will feel uncertain. It will feel difficult. It will feel like you're losing control. But that's not danger. That's growth. And your mind doesn't like it because it's unfamiliar, because it's unpredictable, because it requires effort. But that's exactly where your life changes, outside of what feels safe, outside of average, outside of comfort. But to get there, you have to let go of safety, at least a little. You have to accept uncertainty. You have to accept discomfort. You have to accept that growth will not feel easy. And that's the price of becoming more than average, the price of breaking the cycle, the price of building a life that's actually yours. Because right now, you're not building your life, you're maintaining it. And maintaining will never take you to the next level. It will only keep you where you are. So decide, do you want to stay safe or do you want to grow? Because nobody is coming to save you. And the life you want is waiting outside your comfort zone.
It doesn't happen overnight. You don't wake up one day and decide, I want to live an average life. No, it's quieter than that, slower than that, more subtle. It happens in small moments, small decisions, small habits, repeated over time. At first, you still have ambition, you still have ideas, you still believe you can do more. You think, this is temporary, I'll change soon, I just need a little time. But time passes, and those small delays, they start stacking. You don't act today, you don't act tomorrow, you don't act next week. And slowly, that version of you that wanted more starts fading. Not because it disappeared, but because you stopped feeding it. And what you don't feed fades. That's how identity works. You become what you repeatedly do, not what you think, not what you say, not what you plan, but what you do every single day. So if your days are filled with comfort, you become comfortable. If your days are filled with delay, you become someone who delays. If your days are filled with average actions, you become average. That's the transformation, and it's invisible. You don't feel it happening. You don't notice the shift because it's gradual, like water dripping on stone, slow, consistent, until one day the shape has changed, and you don't even remember how. You just look at your life and think, this is who I am. But is it really? Or is it just who you've become through repetition? Because identity is not fixed, it's built through habits, through actions, through consistency. And right now, your identity is being built by your average choices. Every time you choose easy over necessary, you reinforce it. Every time you avoid discomfort, you strengthen it. Every time you delay action, you confirm it. And after a while, it stops feeling like a choice. It feels like reality. You start saying things like, this is just how I am. I'm not that type of person. I can't do that. But those are not truths. They're patterns. Patterns you've repeated so many times that they feel permanent. But they're not. They're just familiar. And familiarity is powerful. Because your brain prefers what's familiar, even if it's limiting, even if it's keeping you stuck, even if it's not what you truly want. Because familiar feels safe, predictable, comfortable. And breaking that familiarity feels uncomfortable, feels wrong, feels like you're going against yourself. But you're not. You're just stepping outside of a pattern that you've been repeating for too long. That's the shift. The moment you realize
This is not who I am. It's just what I've been doing. That changes everything. Because now you have control. Now you can change it. But only if you're willing to act differently. Because thinking differently is not enough. Wanting differently is not enough. You have to do differently, consistently, until that becomes your new identity, until your actions match the person you want to become. Because right now, there's a gap between who you are and who you could be. And that gap is filled with habits, your current actions, your current patterns. And if those don't change, that gap stays forever. That's the truth. You don't become better by waiting. You don't become different by hoping. You become different by acting, daily, consistently, intentionally, until it becomes natural, until it becomes you. But most people don't reach that point because they don't realize what's happening. They don't see how their identity is being shaped. They just live, repeat, exist, and over time, they become someone they never intended to be. Not because they failed, but because they didn't pay attention. And now, you see it. You understand it, which means you can change it. But awareness is not enough. It's just the beginning. Because once you're aware, you're responsible. Responsible for your actions, responsible for your habits, responsible for your life. And that's not easy, because now you can't blame anything else. Not your situation, not your past, not your environment. You know what's happening, and if you don't change it, that's a choice, a conscious one, to stay where you are, to remain average, to keep repeating the same patterns, and that's on you. But it also means you have the power to change it right now, not tomorrow, not later, now. Because every action you take is a vote for who you're becoming. So vote carefully, because your future identity is being built today, and nobody is coming to save you. So if you want to become more, you have to act like it, starting now.
You didn't choose this life. At least, not fully. You think you did. You think every decision you made was yours. But look closer. Really look. From the moment you were born, you were placed into a system, a structure, a path that was already designed. You didn't question it, because you didn't know you could. You were told what to do, what to learn, what to believe, what success looks like. And you followed it, like everyone else. School taught you how to fit in, not how to stand out. How to follow instructions, not how to think independently. How to memorize answers, not how to question them. And you adapted. You learned to stay within limits, to avoid mistakes, to seek approval, to play it safe. Because that's what gets rewarded. Good grades, good behavior, good compliance. Not bold thinking, not risk-taking, not going against the norm. So slowly, you became conditioned. Conditioned to choose the safe path, the predictable path, the average path. And it didn't feel wrong, because everyone around you was doing the same. Your friends, your classmates, your environment, all moving in the same direction. So you never stopped to ask, is this what I actually want? Because questioning the system feels uncomfortable. It makes you stand out. It makes you different. And different feels risky. So you stay in line. You follow the path. You do what's expected. Because it's easier. Because it's safer. Because it's normal. And normal is average. That's how it works. Not by force, but by repetition, by environment, by influence.
You see the same patterns everywhere. Wake up, work, get by, repeat. People chasing stability, not growth. Security, not potential. Because that's what they were taught. That's what they saw. That's what they believed. And belief shapes behavior. So they stay in the system, and without realizing it, they pass it on to you. Through advice, through expectations, through subtle pressure. Be realistic. Don't take too many risks. Play it safe. Just get a stable life. It sounds logical. It sounds responsible. It sounds like the right thing to do. But what it really does is keep you average. Because average life is predictable, it's manageable, it's controllable. And the system prefers that. It prefers people who don't question, who don't challenge, who don't step outside the norm. Because those people are easier to manage, easier to guide, easier to keep in place. And you've been part of that. Not because you wanted to, but because you didn't know any different. Because no one told you there's another way. A way that's not defined by the system. A way that's not limited by average thinking. A way that requires you to think for yourself, to act for yourself, to build your own path. But that path is not easy. It's uncertain. It's uncomfortable. It goes against everything you've been taught. And that's why most people never take it. Because breaking the system feels like breaking yourself, feels like losing control, feels like stepping into the unknown. And your mind resists that. It tells you, stay where you are. This is safe. This is enough. But is it? Or just familiar? Because familiar doesn't mean right. Familiar just means you're used to it. And you've been used to average for so long that it feels normal. But normal is not your limit. It's just your current standard. And standards can change if you decide them to. But that requires awareness. It requires you to see the system for what it is. Not something evil, not designed to destroy you, but something designed for the majority. And the majority lives average lives. That's the truth. So if you follow the same path, you get the same result. An average life, an average outcome, an average version of yourself. And if that's what you want, then stay. Stay in the system. Stay in the pattern. Stay in what's familiar. But if you want more, you have to question it. You have to step outside of it. You have to think differently, act differently, live differently. And that starts with one realization. You don't have to follow the path you were given. You can create your own. But no one is going to do that for you. Nobody is coming to save you. So if you want more than average, you have to choose it. Consciously, deliberately, starting now. You don't become average alone. That's the truth no one tells you. It doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in environments, through people, through conversations, through influence. And the most dangerous part? It's subtle. No one is trying to hold you back. No one is planning against you. But still, you stay where you are because of who you're around. Look at your circle, the people you spend time with, the conversations you have, the energy you're surrounded by. What do they talk about? Growth or comfort? Do they challenge you or do they agree with you? Do they push you forward or do they keep you where you are? Because people shape you more than you realize, not through control, but through repetition, through exposure, through normalizing certain behaviors. If everyone around you is comfortable, comfort becomes normal.
If everyone around you avoids risk, avoiding risk feels right. If everyone around you delays, delay becomes acceptable. That's how it works. You adapt without thinking, without questioning, because humans are designed to fit in, to belong, to stay connected. So you match the energy around you. You adjust your behavior. You lower your standards, just enough to stay aligned with your environment. Because standing out feels uncomfortable, feels isolating, feels risky. So instead, you blend in. You stay similar. You don't push too far ahead. You don't act too different. Because deep down, you don't want to feel disconnected. That's the hidden pressure. Not direct, not obvious, but powerful. Because it keeps you in place. It keeps you at the same level. It keeps you average, even if you don't want to be. And sometimes the people around you will even try to pull you back, not out of hate, not out of jealousy, but out of familiarity. Because when you change, you disrupt their normal. You challenge their comfort. You make them question themselves, and that's uncomfortable for them. So they say things like, "Why are you doing so much? Relax, it's not that serious. You're overthinking. Just enjoy life." It sounds harmless. It sounds supportive, but it keeps you where you are because it encourages you to slow down, to stop pushing, to stay comfortable. And if you listen, you go back to the same habits, back to the same routine, back to the same average life. That's how powerful your environment is. It doesn't force you, it influences you. And influence is enough. Enough to shape your mindset, enough to shape your behavior, enough to shape your life. So the question is, are you aware of it? Are you aware of how your environment is affecting you? Because if you're not, you're being shaped without control. You're becoming something without choosing it. And that's dangerous. Because you might think, this is just who I am. But it's not. It's who you've become based on who you're around. And that can change if you change your environment. Not necessarily by leaving people completely, but by raising your standards, by being more intentional, by choosing what influences you. Because you don't need to hate your circle. You don't need to cut everyone off. But you do need to recognize not everyone is growing. Not everyone is thinking bigger. Not everyone is trying to become more. And if you stay in the same mindset as them, you stay at the same level. That's reality. So if you want to grow, you have to expose yourself to different thinking, different conversations, different standards, people who challenge you, people who push you, people who don't let you stay comfortable. Because growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens in environments that demand more from you, that expect more from you, that inspire you to level up. And if you don't have that around you, you have to create it through content, through learning, through new connections. Because if you don't, your current environment will keep shaping you, keep influencing you, keep holding you at the same level. And before you realize it, years will pass and you'll still be the same, not because you couldn't grow, but because you stayed in the same environment, with the same mindset, with the same people. And that's the trap. You don't need enemies to stay average. You just need comfort, familiarity, and a circle that doesn't push you. That's enough. So look around, look at your environment, look at your circle, and ask yourself, is this helping me grow, or is it keeping me where I am? Because nobody is coming to save you. And if you want to become more, you have to choose better, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it feels different, even if it means standing alone for a while. Because staying average is not worth it.
There comes a point where you can't unsee it anymore. You've seen the patterns. You've understood the trap. You've realized the truth. You're living an average life. And now, You have a choice: stay or leave. But here's what no one tells you. Leaving average comes with a cost, a real one. Not just effort, not just discipline, but discomfort, pain, isolation. Because the moment you decide, I don't want this life anymore, everything changes. Not around you, but inside you. You start noticing things differently. The habits that once felt normal now feel like limitations. The routines that once felt comfortable now feel like cages. The conversations that once felt okay now feel empty. And that creates tension, because you're no longer aligned with the life you're living. You've outgrown it mentally, but you're still in it physically. And that gap, it's uncomfortable. It feels like pressure, like you don't belong where you are anymore, but you haven't reached where you want to be either. You're in between. And that's one of the hardest places to be, because there's no stability, no clear comfort, just awareness and discomfort. And most people can't handle that. So they go back to average, back to comfort, back to what feels familiar, because at least it's easy. At least it doesn't create tension. But if you stay, you know what happens. You stay stuck. You stay limited. You stay average. So now you have to decide. Is comfort worth your potential? Is ease worth your future? Is staying the same worth everything you could become? Because leaving average means giving up things you're used to, things you enjoy, things that feel good in the moment. Late nights of distraction, mindless scrolling, easy routines. You have to let those go. Not because they're evil, but because they're keeping you where you are. And if you hold on to them, you hold on to average. That's the trade. You can't have both. You can't live an average lifestyle and expect an above-average life. It doesn't work like that. So something has to change. And change is uncomfortable. It disrupts your routine. It challenges your habits. It forces you to act differently. And acting differently feels unnatural at first, like you're going against yourself. But you're not. You're going against your old patterns, and your old patterns will fight back. They'll tell you, this is too much, you're overdoing it, just relax today. Because your brain wants to return to comfort. It wants to go back to what's easy, what's familiar, what requires less effort. But if you listen, you go back. And going back means staying average. So you have to resist. You have to push through that discomfort, even when it feels hard, even when it feels unnatural, even when it feels like you're forcing yourself. Because that's the process. That's the price of becoming more. And it's not just internal, it's external too. People will notice, people will question you, people will say, you've changed, you're different now, you're too serious. And they're right, you have changed, because staying the same was no longer an option. And not everyone will understand that. Not everyone will support that, because your growth highlights their comfort. And that can create distance, not always physical, but emotional. You might feel alone, misunderstood, disconnected, and that's part of the cost, because growth separates. It pulls you away from what's familiar and pushes you toward what's necessary. And that space in between, it's uncomfortable, but it's temporary, because on the other side of that discomfort is a new level, a new version of you. A version that doesn't settle, a version that doesn't stay average, a version that chooses growth even when it's hard. But to get there, you have to pay the price. You have to accept the discomfort. You have to let go of the old and step into the unknown, without guarantees, without certainty, just belief. Belief that you can become more, that you deserve more, that you're capable of more. And that belief has to be stronger than your desire for comfort, because comfort will always be there, calling you back, trying to pull you in, trying to keep you where you are. But now, you know better. You see it. You understand it. So you have a choice. Go back to average or move forward into something more. And nobody is going to make that choice for you. Nobody is coming to save you. So if you want more, you have to choose it, and you have to pay for it, with effort, with discipline, with discomfort. That's the cost, and it's worth it, every single time.
There are two lives, not in different worlds, not in different realities, but right here, in the same place, at the same time. Two completely different paths, available to you every single day. The average life and the disciplined life. And the difference between them? It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not intelligence. It's choice. Daily choice, repeated over time. Let's look at the first one, the average life. It starts easy. You wake up without urgency. You check your phone first. You move slowly. No pressure, no structure, no clear direction. You do what feels right, what feels comfortable. You delay things that are hard. You prioritize things that are easy. And the day passes. Nothing intense, nothing demanding, just normal. And that feels good, relaxed, effortless, safe. But look closer. Look at the long term. Weeks pass, months pass, years pass, and not much changes. Same habits, same routine, same results. Because average actions produce average outcomes. That's the rule. Now look at the second life, the disciplined life. It doesn't start easy. You wake up with intention, not because you feel like it, but because you decided to. You don't check your phone immediately. You control your focus. You start your day with purpose, even if you're tired, even if you don't feel ready. Because discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It tells you what to do, and you follow it. Not perfectly, but consistently. You do the hard things first. You prioritize what matters. You avoid what wastes your time. And the day feels different. Not easy, not relaxed, but productive, intentional, focused. And at the end of the day, you feel something different. Progress, even if it's small. Now extend that over time. Weeks pass, months pass, years pass, and everything changes. Your mindset evolves, your habits improve, your results grow. Because disciplined actions create above-average outcomes. That's the difference. And it's not visible immediately. That's why most people choose average, because average feels better in the moment. It's easier, more comfortable, less demanding. But discipline? It feels harder. It requires effort. It requires sacrifice. It requires consistency. And because of that, most people avoid it. They choose the easier path, the average path. Not because they want average results, but because they want immediate comfort. And that's the trade. Comfort now or results later. Ease now or growth later. And you can't have both. Not fully. Because the life you build is a reflection of what you choose daily. If you choose comfort, you build an average life. If you choose discipline, you build a better one. It's that simple. But simple doesn't mean easy, because choosing discipline every day is hard. It requires awareness. It requires control. It requires you to go against what feels natural. Because what feels natural is often what keeps you stuck. Scrolling instead of working, resting instead of pushing, avoiding instead of facing. That's natural. But natural doesn't lead to growth. It leads to average. So if you want something different, you have to act differently, consistently. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's boring, even when it feels like nothing is happening, because something is happening. You're building a different life, one decision at a time. And the gap between these two lives, it grows every day. At first, it's small, almost invisible, but over time, it becomes massive. The average life stays the same. The disciplined life moves forward. And one day, the difference is undeniable. Different results, different mindset, different life. All from small daily choices. That's the power. And that's the responsibility. Because no one is forcing you. No one is controlling you. No one is deciding for you. You are, every single day. Through your actions, through your habits, through your choices. So the question is, which life are you building? Not what you say you want, not what you think about, but what you actually do. Because that's what matters. That's what creates your reality. That's what defines your future. Average life or disciplined life? Comfort or growth? Ease or progress? You can't live both. You have to choose. And whatever you choose, you live every day until it becomes your life. So choose carefully, because nobody is coming to save you, and the life you end up with is the one you build, one decision at a time.
It doesn't happen all at once. You don't wake up one day and realize, I've wasted years of my life. No, it happens slowly, quietly, without warning. You live your days one at a time. Wake up, do what you usually do, get through the day, sleep, repeat. And because each day feels similar, you don't notice anything changing. It feels like time is slow, like there's no rush, like you have plenty of it. But that's the illusion. Because while your days feel slow, your years move fast. One day becomes a week. One week becomes a month. One month becomes a year. And suddenly, time is gone. But you don't feel it. Not immediately, because nothing dramatic happened. No big loss, no major failure, just time passing. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because average life doesn't shock you. It numbs you. It keeps you in a rhythm, a predictable loop where everything feels normal, even if nothing is improving. And that loop, it hides the truth, that your life is moving forward without progress, that your time is being spent without intention, that your potential is fading without resistance. And you don't notice because you're busy. Busy with routine, busy with distractions, busy with things that don't matter. And busyness creates the illusion of productivity. It makes you feel like you're doing something, even when you're not moving forward. So you continue, day after day, without questioning it, without stepping back, without asking, where is this going? Because asking that question breaks the loop. It forces you to see, to realize, to confront the truth. And that truth is uncomfortable. So you avoid it. You stay busy. You stay distracted. You stay in motion, but not in progress. And that's how time slips away. Not in big moments, but in small, repeated patterns. Scrolling, delaying, avoiding, repeating, over and over again. Until one day, you stop. You look around, and something feels off. You can't explain it at first, but you feel it. A quiet discomfort, a subtle realization that time has passed, more than you expected, and you're not where you thought you would be, not even close. And that's when it hits you. The years you didn't notice, the time you didn't track, the life you were living
without intention. And suddenly, everything feels different. The same routine now feels empty. The same habits now feel limiting. The same life now feels small. Because now you see it. You see how long you've been here, how long you've been repeating the same patterns, how long you've been staying the same. And that realization, it's heavy, because now you can't go back. You can't recover those years. You can't undo the time. It's gone. And all you have left is what remains and what you choose to do with it. That's the moment where awareness becomes real, where the illusion breaks, where you finally see time is not slow. It's fast, faster than you think, faster than you feel. And if you don't use it intentionally, it disappears without giving you anything in return. That's the cost of average life. It doesn't just keep you where you are. It takes your time, silently, without resistance, without warning, until there's less left. And by the time you realize it, you don't have as much time as you thought. That's the fear. Not immediate failure, but delayed realization. The moment when you finally understand, I should have done more. I should have started earlier. I should have taken it seriously. But now, you're behind. Not compared to others, but compared to your own potential. And catching up feels harder, because habits are stronger, because time is limited, because pressure is real. And that's the reality. Time doesn't stop. It doesn't slow down for you. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It just moves. And you either move with it or you get left behind. So ask yourself, how many years have you already lost? How many days have you repeated the same patterns? How much time have you spent without moving forward? Because the answer matters, not to make you feel bad, but to wake you up, to make you realize this can't continue. Not like this, not anymore. Because if it does, you know where it leads. More wasted time, more repeated patterns, more years you won't notice until they're gone. And by the time you realize it, it's harder to change, harder to catch up, harder to become what you could have been. So don't wait for that moment. Don't wait until you feel that regret. Don't wait until time forces you to realize it. Wake up now, while you still have time, while you still have control, while you still have a chance, because nobody is coming to save you. And the years you don't notice are the ones you lose forever. So don't lose any more. Start now, before more time disappears, without you even realizing it.
At some point, you run out of excuses, not because life becomes easier, but because the truth becomes undeniable. You've seen the patterns, you've felt the frustration, you've noticed the time passing, and now there's nowhere left to hide. No more blaming your situation, no more blaming your past, no more blaming the people around you, because deep down, you know. You know what you've been doing. You know what you've been avoiding. You know what you should have done, but didn't. And that realization, it's uncomfortable, because it removes every layer of protection, every excuse, every story you told yourself to feel better. Now, it's just you and your reality, and your reality is built by your actions or your inaction. That's the truth, not what you want to hear, not what feels good, but what's real. Because at the end of the day, no one else is living your life. No one else is making your decisions. No one else is controlling your time. You are, every single day, through what you choose to do and what you choose to ignore. And once you see that, everything changes, because now you're responsible, fully, not partially, not sometimes, but completely, for where you are, for where you're going, for what your life becomes. And that's heavy, because responsibility is not comfortable. It doesn't let you relax. It doesn't let you avoid. It forces you to face reality, to accept that if nothing changes, it's because you didn't change. If you stay stuck, it's because you didn't move. If you live an average life, it's because you accepted it. That's the truth, and it's not easy to accept, because it means you can't blame anyone else, not your environment, not your background, not your circumstances. Even if they made things harder, they didn't make it impossible. You still had choices, maybe not perfect ones, maybe not easy ones, but choices. And those choices, they matter more than anything, because they shape your life, one decision at a time. And if you've been making average decisions, you get an average life, not by accident, but by design, your habits, your patterns. And that's the turning point, the moment you realize it's on me, not in a negative way, not to blame yourself, but to take control. Because if it's on you, then it's in your hands. Your future is not random, it's not luck, it's not chance. It's built through your actions, through your discipline, through your consistency. And that means you can change it right now, not later, not someday, now. Because you don't need permission, you don't need approval, you don't need someone to tell you you can do this. You already know, you've always known, you just didn't act. But now you see it clearly, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to ignorance. You can't pretend everything is okay, because now you understand, if your life stays the same, it's on you. If your life improves, it's on you. If you become more or stay average, it's on you. That's power, real power, because it puts you in control, not of everything, but of what matters most, your actions, your time, your direction. And that's enough, more than enough, to change everything, but only if you use it. Because knowing is not enough, understanding is not enough. You have to act consistently, intentionally, without excuses. Because excuses don't change your life, action does. And action starts with responsibility, owning where you are, owning what you've done, owning what you need to do next, without blaming, without complaining, without waiting. Because waiting is just another excuse, and you're done with that. You have to be, because you've seen what it leads to. More time lost, more opportunities missed, more potential wasted, and you don't want that. Not anymore. So now, you take control, fully, not halfway, not temporarily, but completely. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what am I going to do about it? That's the shift, the one that changes everything. Because once you take responsibility, you take power. And once you have power, you can build, you can change, you can become more. But no one is going to do that for you. Nobody is coming to save you. So if you want a different life, you have to create it through your actions, through your discipline, through your choices, starting now. Because it's all on you. It always was, and it always will be.
One day, you will stop. Not because someone tells you to, not because something forces you, but because life will slow down for a moment, and you'll finally see clearly. No distractions, no noise, no excuses, just you and your life. And in that moment, everything will make sense. Not the way you once believed, but the way it actually is. You'll see how you lived, how you spent your time, how you made your decisions, how you chose your comfort or your growth. And the truth will be simple, painfully simple. You became what you repeated, not what you wanted, not what you imagined, but what you consistently did, every day, without exception. And that realization, it changes everything. Because suddenly, there's no confusion, no mystery, no question of why.
you'll know exactly why your life looks the way it does. Because you built it, piece by piece, choice by choice, day by day. And once it's built, you can't go back and redesign it. You can't erase the years. You can't undo the patterns. You can only look at it and accept it. That's the moment where reality becomes final. And there are only two outcomes, two completely different feelings. In one, you feel regret, deep, quiet regret. Not because life was unfair, but because you didn't use what you had. You had time, you had chances, you had the ability to change, but you didn't act. You delayed, you stayed comfortable, you lived average, and now you feel it, the weight of what could have been, the life you didn't build, the person you didn't become. And no matter how much you wish, you can't change it, because time doesn't come back. In the other outcome, you feel something different, not perfection, not pride in everything, but peace, because you tried, because you acted, because you didn't waste your time, even when it was hard, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it would have been easier to stay the same. You chose differently, and that difference, it shows. In your life, in your mindset, in who you became. And that feeling, it's earned, not given, not handed to you, but built through discipline, through effort, through consistency. That's the difference between these two lives. Not luck, not talent, but choices. Daily choices, repeated over time. And those choices, they start now. Not in the future, not in some big moment, but right here, in this exact second. Because this moment, it matters more than you think. It's not just another second. It's a decision point, a turning point, a chance to choose differently, to stop living average, to stop repeating the same patterns, to stop wasting time and start building something more. But only if you act, only if you move, only if you decide, this is not the life I want. Because without that decision, nothing changes. Everything stays the same, and time keeps moving, until you reach that moment where it's too late. And you don't want that. You've seen what that looks like. You've felt what that leads to. So don't go there. Don't wait for that realization. Don't wait until time forces you to understand. Choose now. Act now. Change now. Because nobody is coming to save you. And the life you end up with is the one you choose. Not with your words, not with your thoughts, but with your actions, every single day. So if you want something different, do something different. If you want more, become more. If you want a better life, build it. Because it's yours. It always was, and it always will be. But only if you take it seriously. Only if you stop settling. Only if you stop living average and start living intentionally. Because in the end, it all comes down to this. The life you choose is the life you live. So choose wisely, because time is not waiting, and neither should you.